You're listening to the Outstanding Life Podcast with your host, Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy. As a motivational speaker, Johnny D impacts audiences around the world with his message of living the outstanding life. He's a best-selling author, MC, and two-time Grammy-considered artist. This podcast is a place where Johnny D can introduce you to his outstanding friends and share funny, interesting, and heart-provoking stories. Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up. Here comes your host, Johnny D.
Hey everybody, I'm Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Outstanding Life Podcast. Before we get things kicked off today, I want to say a big hello to all my friends tuning in on Dirt Road Radio, KYDT 103.1 FM and KBFS 1450 AM. Today, ladies and gentlemen, you know I bring the coolest people to the studio, and today we have professional wrestler and stunt actor, Jay Adams. Jay, how are you?
Hey, John, I'm good. How are you?
Absolutely outstanding. Jay, I'm going to kick this podcast off with this question. And the question is, what inspired you to pursue a career in professional wrestling? But before you answer that, I was talking to some neighbors today, and I was telling them who I was going to have on the show. And I believe you grew up where I'm living now. And is it true? Yeah. Is it true that you used to do dive rolls over desks in high school here in Southgate, Michigan? Because if I'm not mistaken, you went to Anderson High School.
I did way back in the day. I feel kind of old now thinking about how long ago it's been. But yeah, I went to Southgate there. I used to do that all the time. I would do dives over the desks and do rolls and do all sorts of crazy stuff. And very physical kind of stuff. And, I remember my friend Heather always was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? I said, I'm training to be a stuntman. I want to be a stuntman when I grow up. And, you say that in high school and, or middle school into high school, and you say things like that. And, it sounds like a pipe dream, but, years later, all of a sudden, here I was able to make it come true.
Now, Jay, for those of us that are listening to your voice, tell everybody how big you are, because you're a big dude.
Yeah, I'm pretty big. I would say I'm about 6'6", 6'7", somewhere around there, and about 270 pounds. Big guy. I was a pro wrestler for years, and I was probably one of the biggest guys here in the Michigan independent wrestling area. There wasn't too many guys at my size that I got to wrestle. I was usually wrestling much smaller guys, but yeah, I'm a tall drink of water, as my wife likes.
So Jay, I'm thinking about how big you are, and I'm thinking about you doing these, dive rolls over desks and stuff like that. Were you a big dude in high school as well?
Yeah, I was kind of like what my son is now. He's 6'4", tall kid, but super skinny. That was me growing up. About ninth grade, I started getting tall. I started shooting up, and it wasn't long before I was about 6'4", and but I was, like I said, I was growing so fast that the rest of me couldn't catch up. So I was a pretty skinny kid. So
okay,
I was probably, at 6'4", I was probably only 170 pounds. So, I was pretty skinny. So, but yeah, I always played basketball and played hockey growing up. They're very active. So I was always tall, but very lean.
So I have to ask, your first love was professional wrestling. So how did that happen? How did you get into wrestling?
Oh, I was always a huge wrestling fan growing up, as so many of us was. I grew up watching Hulk Hogan and Undertaker. Undertaker was always my favorite. But growing up in Michigan area, sometimes, anything that kind of looks like it's on TV kind of looks far away from Detroit. It doesn't seem like it's accessible. So you never think you can actually become one of these things. But years later, I used to do a lot of stuff on a local radio show here in Detroit, Daminsky and Doyle, who are guys that went out to Jersey as well. I used to do a lot of stunts for them on the air. Like I would One time they pepper sprayed me to just see how that affected me, things like that. And I actually met a pro wrestler through that show. And he invited me out to one of his local wrestling shows, and I went out and I fell in love with it. And I didn't realize that there was other wrestling local, as opposed to, national WWE that you only see on TV. I never even knew that there was local wrestling all over the country, actually. And I got involved with that, immediately went home and I found a wrestling school and started attending. And in 2002, started pro wrestling.
Wow. So I have to ask, what did your family and friends think when you told them, "Hey, I'm gonna go ahead and be a professional wrestler"?
Surprisingly enough, nobody was that surprised. just knowing me, that's just kind of my personality. I've always been into entertaining. I've always been, I've sang in bands all growing up, and I've always been, entertainment oriented. So they weren't very surprised when I got into it.
Did you say that you used to be in a band?
Yeah, I've been in a few bands over the years. I've sang everything from country to rock to pretty much everything.
Jay, I did not know that. So do you play guitar then as well?
I play a little bit. I play a little bit of rhythm guitar. I can't play lead to save my life, but I play a little bit of rhythm. It's hard to sing and play at the same time, though. So I try to do one or the other.
Jay, one of these days that we're both in town, because I believe you still live in Michigan, correct?
I do. I'm just outside of Detroit.
Yeah. So one of these days, I'm going to get one of my guitar player friends to come over, and I'm going to get you back on the podcast so everybody can hear you sing.
All right.
Well,
I don't know if your audience will be happy about that, but we'll see.
I was going to say, or I can take you to one of my buddies' recording studios, and we could do something there. That would actually be kind of fun.
Oh man, that'd be pretty retro. It'd be like, remember back in the day, back when you'd go to Cedar Point and they had those recording studios.
Yes.
You pay like $20 to make a single cassette of you singing a song.
And I remember doing that, but this time, Jay, you won't have to pay. I'm going to pay for it for you.
Oh, nice.
Just for the entertainment. I'm not going to pepper spray you. I'm just going to let you sing.
That'll be safer.
Jay, do you remember your first wrestling match, and how did it go?
Oh yeah, I do remember it very well. It was in Rockwood, Michigan. I was so excited for it. It was 2002. Excuse me. I was wrestling a guy named, what was his name? Good question. He did kind of like an Undertaker gimmick. But he was something. But anyway, I got to wrestle him in my first match, and he was the vet. He's been around for a while, and he called. He did some chair shots on my back, and it really welcomed me to the business right away. So, but I remember it very fondly in Rockwood, Michigan. I remember what I was wearing. I remember how I felt that day, and just the excitement and why I fell in love with not only pro wrestling, but performing in general.
Jay, let me ask you this. That was your first time ever, competing as a wrestler. How did you feel afterwards when you took a shower, put everything in your bag, you went out and met the fans, you got in your car, you might have been alone, you might have had some friends with you, but what was that ride home like when you got to be alone and you thought about all the work you put in? How did it make you feel?
It was such a surreal thing, because you work so hard, like you said, you work so hard at something, and even though it's something that's pretty popular, it's out there, and a lot of people see it, on TV and things like that, but they don't know the work that goes into these smaller shows where you're building up to trying to get it in the WWE. And the work that you put in, because you're not only there wrestling, you're also there putting the ring together. You're also putting the chairs up. You're doing everything you can to help with the show, because it takes everybody to make those small independent shows work. So the ride home was a very surreal feeling. It's almost like you almost feel like you made it, but you also know that there's still so far ahead of you, and there's still so much more to accomplish.
Right.
And you just because you felt you made it, you haven't really made anything yet. So and now the real work starts, and you find out just how much that the work never ends.
Jay, there's a lot of people that think that they can never make their dreams happen. What do you tell the people listening right now that they have this crazy dream of doing whatever it is? I mean, you wanted to be a wrestler, you wanted to be a stunt actor, you did it, but what do you tell the people?
The thing is, I run into this a lot. I try to, work with, especially with the wrestling, you meet a lot of fans that are kids and things like that. And it's so cool to be able to be a role model for somebody, to show them that there is no such thing as impossible. It took me a long time to realize that, growing up in Detroit, like I said, you see things on TV, you see wrestling, you see stuntmen, you see the movies. You see that's a Hollywood thing. That's not a Detroit thing. And you don't necessarily see a way of getting from Detroit to Hollywood. So it doesn't necessarily, it looks unattainable.
Right.
But nothing is unattainable if you work at it. If you want it enough and you're going to bust your enough to do it, you're going to attain it. And sure, it takes a lot. Not only you busting it does take a lot of luck. It takes a lot of people being in your corner, but being there to either mentor you, to point you in the right direction, to help you, to anywhere along the way. It takes a lot of things. None of that is going to come. None of that luck is going to come. None of that support is going to come without your hard work being the first thing that you do.
Amen, man. It's so true. I asked you about your first wrestling match. What was the highlight of your wrestling career? And I have to ask, before you even answer that, what was your wrestling name? I mean, everybody has a wrestling name that was a wrestler. So, I mean, first, what was your wrestling name? And then what was the highlight of your wrestling career?
My wrestling name was Eddie Venom.
Eddie Venom.
Eddie Venom.
So I have to ask, how did you come up with Eddie Venom?
A lot of people don't realize a lot of wrestlers are big comic book nerds, and I'm no different. I was a huge comic book nerd. Spider-Man was always my favorite, and Venom was a character in Spider-Man. And I always loved the character Venom, and Venom's alter ego was Eddie Brock. So I just put the two together and became Eddie Venom.
Nice.
And wrestled as Eddie Venom for years. I wrestled for WWE a few times. Wrestled all over the Midwest, Canada. Was featured on MTV, different shows. I got to do a lot of amazing things through the wrestling. And it was, like I said, something that I never thought was going to be attainable. But because of being persistent, I was able to make it work.
Well, Eddie Venom, I got to ask, what was the highlight then of your wrestling career?
Yeah, so many good highlights. I got to wrestle so many cool old legends that I grew up watching. I got to wrestle guys like I wrestled Tito Santana. I wrestled,
awesome.
Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Oh, yes. He was awesome.
I wrestled the Steiner brothers when the first time that they tagged up together in like 20 years. I got to wrestle them in their hometown of Bay City. I got to wrestle countless big time names that I got to, like I said, that I grew up watching. It was an amazing honor for me.
One doesn't stick out though?
Probably one of my favorites. It would probably be when I got to wrestle on SmackDown at Joe Louis Arena. Me and another guy, CK3, were a tag team. So for me to be able to go out and wrestle at Joe Louis Arena with a packed crowd, and not only that, but it was actually televised on SmackDown.
Dude, you're giving me goosebumps. That's awesome.
That was amazing. The coolest part about it was because Detroit is such a big wrestling town, there's a lot of the same fans that came out to the local shows. We went to the WWE show. So there were actually fans around the wrestling ring that close enough that I could hear, because it's such a big building, that knew who I was and were chanting my name. So it was a pretty cool feeling.
That is so cool, man. Hey, who was the toughest opponent and what made them stand out?
Toughest opponent was actually probably my best friend.
No kidding.
My best friend, Jamie Cox. We wrestled as a tag team for years, and then we wrestled against each other for years. And the reason he was the toughest is because we were so close. He would punch me so very hard. To be honest, he would always pound on me because he's a bigger guy. He's a big guy, but not as big as me. So he would always say, he's like, Jay, I'm smaller than you. I have to just punch you right in the head, so that, otherwise it doesn't look good, so I always, I would wrestle guys that were, that have made millions of dollars on TV, and they were light as a feather and great to work with. But my best friend, who was my best man in my wedding, just would beat the crap out of me every single time.
I love it. Hey, this question came in on social media, and they want to know how much of what happens in the ring is improv and how, versus planned.
It really all depends on the level of the show, as opposed to what, and the height of the show. So say a WWE show, say it's a SmackDown show, there will be a basic outline of what they want to happen. And then the performers, as long as they're, have been there for a long time and they know what they're doing, they have the freedom to kind of maneuver in between those major things that they want to happen, bigger shows like WrestleMania and things like that, I would tend to believe that they're a lot more scripted just because they're a lot bigger shows. There's a lot more people there. They're very theatrical. So I would assume that those are more scripted. But when you get to the smaller shows, the way I used to do it is the promoter would tell me, who is going to, what the storyline of the show is, what's going on. And they would tell me just a couple things that they wanted in the match. And then I'd talk to my opponent. We would go over it back and forth with a couple of just main things that we'd want to get in. And then I basically would go out there and kind of feel it with the crowd. Because the way I like to perform is to perform to the crowd and to perform to their reactions. Not necessarily what you have scripted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, because what you have scripted might be great, but it might not be reacting with the audience at the correct time.
Was that something you had to practice, was getting on the microphone and working like the crowd?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it took years to get to that point. It's practice. It's repetition, doing it over and over again, being in front of crowds over and over again. And to be honest, it's failing a lot. It's doing horribly a lot and learning from that so that you get better every single time.
Jay, I'm glad you brought that up. We're listening to you, and your career is just amazing. But do you remember a time that you did fail? And can you maybe tell us? Because I think people like to hear that, your success story, but I also think they like to hear your failures because that's where we might be in our lives.
That's one of the biggest things that I try to promote to people is that you can't have success without failure.
Amen, brother.
You can't get to that point that you want to be without learning from the mistakes that you've made. So yeah, I've made plenty of mistakes, whether it's younger in my career and younger as a person and maybe not as mature and saying the wrong things as far as, not being as respectful as I should be to some of the older veterans and things like that. Looking back at it now, I hate that I would do something like that. I hate that I would be stupid enough to not be respectful. But, that is one of those things that you learn. You learn because people, like I said, along the way, people are there to help you become successful. Those people that care about you, and they will help you along the way, and they'll tell you, hey, you screwed up. Get your stuff together and get it right. And that's what it takes. There's been plenty of times where I've had somebody pull me aside and say, hey, you need to chill out here. You're being stupid. You're just not thinking. So get your head right and get it together, and got me right back on track.
Did you have a mentor?
Yeah, I've had a couple in the wrestling. I had older veterans in the Michigan wrestling industry. They're like I still call him Pops to this day. Bobby Lee, Dave St. Ange is a guy from Hazel Park, Michigan. That he, like I said, I call him Pops because he's my wrestling dad. He took me in and helped me out in the business, got me smart, as well as Truth Martini, who is a world-renowned trainer. He actually trained Zach Gowen, who was the world's first one-legged pro wrestler. That was he was on WWE for a while, and he's trained countless other stars. I learned from him how to navigate the wrestling businesses and not only the business side of it, but the kind of the politics side of it too. You know, every business, especially especially a performance based industry, there's a lot of competition and there's a lot of things that you have to deal with. And I've had guys like that, and I've been lucky enough that have been, looking over me.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, did you have any rituals or routines that you followed before stepping into a ring? Like, did you listen to poetry? Did you go in the bathroom and sing? Did you listen to music? Like, where was that? Where was that for you? Or did you even have those rituals?
Yeah, not so much ritual, but just I would always listen to music to get myself kind of in the right mind. And then I would usually try to watch the match before me, kind of see how the crowd is reacting. So you can tell kind of how hot the crowd is and see what kind of intensity you need to bring them up. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
no, I don't. I know exactly what you mean, because I know I get to my speaking gigs, an hour or two before the event and watch people walk in. So I kind of see, because you can prepare all you want, and then the audience gets there and it's a totally different vibe, and you have to change everything.
Exactly, and that's why you have to be adaptable. That's what, especially with the wrestling, that took me a long time to learn. But once I did learn that, I feel like I became a better wrestler, because in all honesty, wrestling to me is not about the moves that you do. It's about how you connect with the audience.
100%.
So there's guys that can do amazing acrobatic flips and things like that in the ring, and they're amazing. I can't do that. But what I do is I'll pick some individual in the crowd, depending on how big the crowd is, and I'll actually interact with them personally as a bad guy or however it is, and start to get individual people involved in it so that they feel like they're actually part of the show. And I think that's what, especially with wrestling, that's a big thing with, as far as the audience. If you can make them feel like they're part of the show, they're going to remember that, as opposed to the 8 flips that the guy did before you.
You're absolutely right, man.
You know what I mean?
Make them a part of that storyline.
Yeah, because the 8 flips are awesome, but the connection, that personal connection, is what's actually going to make that person remember it more.
This question came in on social media, and I'm sure that you've answered this a million times, but I'm going to have you answer it 1,000,001. What's a common misconception people have about professional wrestling? That
everything that we're doing in there is fake. So, I mean, let's be realistic. Everybody knows that pro wrestling is scripted. It is predetermined. The outcomes are predetermined. However, what people don't realize is we really beat the crap out of each other in the ring. I mean, it's not like the old days where people thought that it was more real than what it is, and you could kind of get away with more things. Nowadays, especially with to be honest, HD television, you can see everything. So if you don't connect with a punch, or you don't connect with a kick or something like that, the audience they can see it immediately. They can point it out, and they can call BS. So that just requires us to be much more physical in the ring. So you're getting hit out there. Those aren't fake steel chairs. I wish they were. Those aren't fake tables that you go through. Those are real things that when we go up, you get picked up by a 6'6" guy like me and slammed to the ground, you're actually falling to the ground. There's no way to fake that. So it's a misconception that it's easy because it's all fake. No, it's not.
Have you ever got hurt? Have you ever gotten hurt?
Oh, I've had countless injuries in the ring. I would break fingers every once in a while, and I would break my nose every few months from accidentally, getting hit too hard in the nose. I broke a tibia one time. My leg, I broke that. I fractured that. But the worst injury, I broke a vertebrae. It was 2011, and I actually broke one vertebrae and crushed another one. So I broke my back in the ring.
In the ring?
Yeah, during a match.
Did you finish the match?
surprisingly enough, I actually did. So,
holy cow! Are you serious?
yeah.
Please explain.
So the match is going on. It's a tag team match. Me with my best friend that I was talking about earlier, Jamie Cox, and we're wrestling two other guys. And we're towards the end of the match. And the move is I have a guy on my shoulders. I'm carrying him basically on my shoulders, and I just drop down to my butt. It kind of looks like a backbreaker on him, but basically he just slides off of my shoulders. But it's just giving the illusion that hitting down to my butt, it jarred his back. Well, he was supposed to slide off my shoulders. However, too much of his body was on my shoulders and didn't. And so it compressed my spine when I dropped. So it broke one vertebrae and it crushed another one. So immediately, we hit the mat, and I felt what I thought was a popping. I wasn't sure, but I told my opponent, I said, I think I'm hurt. And he said, well, we only got 2 minutes left. Let's just finish the match.
Easy for him to say.
So me being adrenaline or not enough brains, I don't know, maybe both. I get up and I finish the match, and we do a few more moves, and we finish the match. And then me and my partner are actually victorious. We win the match, and he wants to celebrate through the crowd. So we kind of go through the crowd a little bit, and then I get through the curtain and immediately collapse to the ground. And I was in some of the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. And so I went to the hospital. It turns out I had broken one vertebrae and crushed another one. So
wow,
that was the worst injury out of all of them. And that's actually what's a weird thing. It's kind of a blessing in disguise, because that's what actually led me to eventually find stunt work and transition into stunt work and retire from pro wrestling.
And Jay, that is a perfect time for us to take a quick break. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back after this break with Jay Adams. From wrestling rings to Hollywood scenes, the fearless journey of Jay Adams. We'll be back after this message.
What if you could get a blueprint for success to take you through life and help you know what the right decisions are, how to unlock your potential, and achieve the success that you've seen in your dreams? Well, that blueprint exists, and it has a title, Wild Cards of Success by Johnny D. This book is designed to inspire and show you how to reach the heights you want to reach in your personal and professional life. Wild Cards of Success is a profound exploration of one's potential. This book will push every reader to dive deep into the soul's most profound corners. Have you ever heard someone say that you just need to believe in yourself? And did you wonder exactly how you would do that? Wild Cards of Success will show you how. And it's available right now. Go online to motivationalcowboy.com and order Johnny D's Wild Cards of Success. This masterclass in motivation and self-empowerment truly is the blueprint to the outstanding life. Order Wild Cards of Success now at motivationalcowboy.com.
Hey, everybody, you're listening to the Outstanding Life podcast. And if you've been listening, you know that we are with professional wrestler and stunt actor Jay Adams. If you've missed the first part of the show, you got to go back and listen to it. He talks about his career as a professional wrestler. And Jay, in the first part of the show, you were talking about, you getting injured. And from that injury, this is what led you to becoming a stunt actor, and that's what you're doing today.
Yeah, it's surprisingly so. Yeah, I broke my back wrestling in the pro wrestling ring, and decided I was going to get into something else, and just happened to, at that time in Michigan, we had a really good tax credit for filming, so a lot of stuff was filming around here. So I was able to transition from wrestling into the film stunt work, and then slowly transition out of the wrestling.
So how does somebody all of a sudden just one day get out of professional wrestling and say, hey, I'm going to be a stunt actor? Like what's the process? I mean, is there like a school? Is there a university? Is it just making calls? Is it getting an agent? What is it? Is it you doing, a couple stunts, with your video camera? I mean, how does it happen?
To be honest, all those things are possible, because everybody has a different path into the business and into the industry.
Really?
Like you said, a lot, especially with, like you said, just making a video on YouTube. Like there's so many YouTube performers out there now that get discovered and end up making movies and TV shows and things like that, or commercials, things like that as well.
So what was your road?
So my road was not quite like that. So as I said, I was a pro wrestler. I was doing that for a while, and here in Michigan where I live, there was a tax credit for filming. So a lot of stuff was filming here at the time. There was a couple different TV shows that filmed here. We had Batman vs Superman filmed here. We had a Wizard of Oz movie filmed here. A lot of stuff was going on. So one of my best friends that was a wrestler, like I said, the one-legged pro wrestler, actually, Zach Gowen, he had gotten hired by a war movie that was filming here. And they were going to use his prosthetic leg and blow his leg off with a cannon for this movie. So that the stunt coordinator hired him. And I was absolutely fascinated. I could not believe it because, like I said, growing up, I wanted to be a stuntman. And all of a sudden, they're doing stunts here in Michigan, and one of my friends is doing it. I said, I have to know more. So Zach introduced me to the stunt coordinator, Dan Lemieux. I was able to meet him and a couple other stunt coordinators, Carl Mispoli and Pat Patochik, and a couple of guys that were here in the Michigan area. And was lucky enough Carl Mispoli brought me out to a film that he was doing so I could kind of check it out and see how everything goes. And I fell in love with it. I got on set the first time and I knew that's where I wanted to be. So I started training with one of the other coordinators. He had a dojo at his house, so we do some training as far as like film fighting and things like that, because I had to transition from pro wrestling, which is a totally different kind of fighting, for fighting on camera, which is, a lot different. So I had to train for a little while and just kept going, getting invited onto sets to help out and things like that, and would slowly work on learning new abilities and things like that, and just reaching out to different coordinators until finally the right parts came along where they needed a guy like me, and I was able to get booked and finally start working my way into the business.
What was your first scene, and did you get paid for it, or did you have to do it for free?
Well, no. The first thing I did was I got an agent here in Michigan, and I did a commercial. It was actually a 5-hour energy commercial, which it wasn't a stunt, but I played a welder, and it was my first ever commercial, and it was actually a national commercial that got showed all over the country.
Nice.
That was my first gig my technical first gig in the industry. And then I got hired to do a movie called The Citizen, which was done here in Michigan, where I played a bouncer at a seedy hotel for a movie. And that's the movie that actually got me eligible to join the Screen Actors Guild Union.
That is so cool, man. Hey, for those of us that have never been on scene for anything like this, can you walk us through the process of preparing for a stunt scene?
Yeah, so it really all depends on the level of the stunt. I specialize a lot and do a lot of fight scenes. So depending on how big the fight scene is and things like that, I'll get the script ahead of time, and we'll talk with the stunt coordinator and set up a rehearsal so that we can kind of go through the steps of what the writer, if they've been specific in the script as far as the action or not. If not, then the stunt coordinator is then the one that kind of puts the action together as far as whether it's a fight, how he wants the mood of the fight to be, things like that, how intense the fight's going to be, what kind of moves are going to be, things like that. And then we'll rehearse with the stunt people. And if it's going to be that we're doubling an actor, after we get it down with our rehearsals, we'll usually have another rehearsal with the actors so we can show them. We'll probably rehearse on the set the day of. We'll go and rehearse very slowly just so that the cameras will know where we're going to be and they can set up the cameras in the right areas. And then you do it over and over and over and over again.
So Jay, are you saying that a lot of this takes place not even on the movie set? It takes shape somewhere else, like a studio, like you practice somewhere else then? Yeah,
absolutely. Especially with stunts. You want to make sure that you have it right before you get on the set.
Okay.
That's what the people, when you're acting and things like that, you can switch up things on set and it's easy. When there's stunts involved, you can't necessarily switch up things just on the set, because if it's anything rigged as far as like wires where we're on a wire and will be pulled, if they're rigged in a certain area and then things change, then all of a sudden that completely has to change. And that's a couple hours worth of work. So
Gotcha.
we try to get everything set so that, and we actually we'll videotape it. It's called the previs. We'll film that. And so to show a rough cut to the director, and then the director can then make changes and everything, however he wants to do it from there. But that way he has it already, and it has a base model of it, so that when we shoot it, they already know where the camera's going to go and how the movements are going to go.
Jay, I have to ask this question because it came in on social media, and it's a perfect time for me to ask this. But you being a stunt actor, do stunt actors actually have lines, or do you just do the crazy scene, but we see the scene being done, but you really don't have any lines? Or do you actually have lines, or maybe a little bit of both?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. Now, I do some things that are just acting gigs where there's no stunts involved at all, and it's just acting. Or I'll do a stunts job where I'm doubling for an actor. So I don't have it. The actor might have lines, but all I'm doing is the actual stunts for the actor. And then there's also times where I'm booked as a stunt actor. So I will actually be the actor and the stuntman.
Okay, cool. Hey, what has been the most challenging stunt you've ever performed so far to this date?
Most challenging would probably be, so I did a show called Outsiders. It was on WGN. I did that for a couple of years. And I was doubling for an actor named Ryan Hurst. And he's really popular for the show Sons of Anarchy. He played Opie in Sons of Anarchy. And he's really popular. He was in Remember the Titans back in the day. But anyway, we're doing this show, Outsiders, and it's about a family that lives on a mountain off the grid, so they kind of ride ATVs all over. Well, they also fight with ATVs. That's how they resolve their situation. So they'll fight with ATVs back and forth, try to hammer each other off of them with clubs. So the stunt is we're doing that. Not only that, but then I go after him, and he ducks and puts rebar in my front tire, and I go flipping over the handlebars. So long way of putting it, I go flying over onto the hard concrete. Luckily, we only had to do it one time.
I was going to say, I hope you didn't have to do this over and over again.
Yeah, no, it actually worked out really well. We had 3 different cameras at 3 different angles, and it worked out perfect. The stunt coordinator, Bobby King, set it up perfect where I was super safe. And Ely Barda, who's a local Michigan guy, he was working on that show with us too. And he was the other guy on the other ATV, and kept me safe throughout the whole thing. And it was a blast to do, but it's definitely nerve wracking when you're purposely crashing and flying off of an ATV. It can be nerve wracking for sure.
And for those of you that don't remember, Jay is like 6'6", 6'7", 260 some pounds, Jay, right?
Yeah. So it takes a little bit more to get my body moving.
Hey, Jay, how do you ensure your safety while performing these stunts?
It's all about trust. It's all about trusting the stunt coordinator. It's all about trusting the other stunt performers that you're with. It's about doing the work ahead of time, rehearsing it, knowing where you're going to be, knowing if something could go wrong, what it could be, having that in the back of your mind. And like I said, being able to trust the people that you're working with, that's paramount, because if I have a good coordinator that I trust, I will literally run through fire for him, because I trust that he's going to keep me safe.
Jay, have you ever been hurt, like doing a scene and you gotten hurt?
Knock on wood. No, I've just, small things like getting banged up and bruised, but never any major kind of injuries. Like I said, thank goodness. But just, the typical bruises and things like that. Getting older, I'm not as young as I used to be. So it takes me, a couple more days to recuperate than it used to.
Hey, Jay, what is your favorite stunt to perform?
My favorite is always just the fight scenes themselves.
You still just like beating people up then?
Yeah. I love fight scenes where I can like be physical, where like throwing people around and things like that. Just because that's, to me, I grew up on those 80s movies where the big fight scenes in the bar where the guy got thrown over the bar and the guy got thrown over the table into the things, and that's what I love about stunts, and that's what I grew up watching, and that's what I wanted to do. So I did just recently do an episode of Chicago PD where I got to go crashing through some French doors with a cop. Me and him, we were fighting, and we go crashing through the doors, and it explodes. It just looked amazing. And as soon as I did it, I was like, man, this is exactly what I got into this business for.
Do you love watching yourself on TV? And what was it like the first time you sat with your friends and your family and you said to them, hey, I'm going to be on this show, and look at, man, I got my 3 seconds of fame.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't like watching myself very often because I am so critical of myself. Like I don't watch it just to watch it. I end up watching it and I can, nitpick and see exactly. I was like, oh, I should have done this different, or I should have done that different. So I'm not a big fan of watching my stuff, but, I obviously do, but, my wife loves watching stuff that I'm on. It's always just kind of a surreal thing, being that I've grown up like watching some of these shows that I actually get to be on and stuff like that. It's very surreal. It doesn't feel real half the time.
Something that I just saw not long ago, and then I saw your reel, and I was like, holy cow, I didn't even realize that was you in the show. But you were in the show Tulsa King with Sylvester Stallone. And I mean, we're not that far apart of age. And I mean, what was it like being on set with Sylvester Stallone? I mean, dude, you had to feel like a little kid.
Oh, absolutely. What
was that like?
It was so cool. I grew up with an older brother that was obsessed with Rocky, and I watched all the Rockies with him over and over and over again. So I was always a huge Sylvester Stallone fan. So when I got the chance to, I got booked as I played a biker on the season finale of season 1 of the Tulsa King. I played a biker named Red, and this is one of those chances where I actually was booked as the actor to do my own stunts as well. So first day on set with Stallone, and like I said, we had done rehearsal before without him. We'd gotten kind of the stuff together, and then got to meet him. And the first thing he said to me was, "You're an extremely large individual." And so the little kid in me was like, "Man, I wish I was recording that, because that was the coolest thing ever." Because Stallone in that voice that we all know, and him saying that was just it was just amazing.
Jay, I have to ask you something, and I just hope to God you say the right thing to me right now. What was he really like?
Honestly, he was great.
Yeah,
he was great.
Good.
He was great. He was so cool because, like like I said, the first thing he said was he made the joke about me being big, and he was great to work with because I love film and I love the action part of film, and he is an action film legend, obviously. So to watch him construct the scene and put it together to make it make sense for everybody involved in the scene was amazing to watch. And he was just super nice. And we talked a little bit, it turns out he used to have a podcast and about comeback stories. And one of my best friends, Darren McCarty from the Detroit Red Wings, was on it. So I told him about that. I was like, yeah, my best friend was on your podcast. He's like, oh, the hockey player. Oh yeah. He's like, here, take a picture with me, send it to him and tell him I said hi. So I was like, absolutely. I will take a picture with you, Sylvester Stallone.
That is so
yeah,
cool.
He was a great guy.
So how do you stay in shape these days?
I stay active. I play hockey a couple times a week. I don't like to go to the gym often just because I get so bored at the gym. So I prefer to exercise, like doing, like I said, playing hockey. I'll play hockey. I do a lot of walking. I try to take a lot of walks. The older I get, I appreciate walks a whole lot more.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. I've just found some really nice hiking trails, like in the woods, by the water.
Oh, yeah.
It is just so nice and peaceful, and it gets your mind in the right place.
Yeah, that's the best. That's the best thing to do is if you can get out to the woods and get away from the noise, and that's one of the best things to do for relaxation for me.
Tell everybody like some of the other shows you've been on.
I got to do, like I said, I was on that show Outsiders for a couple of years. I got to do a great show called Ray Donovan. That was really popular on Showtime. I got to play a great role on that, where I was a fighter, and got to be in a scene with John Voight all day, which was amazing. I did a couple episodes of Blue Bloods, Chicago PD, like I said, Tulsa King. I was in The Punisher for Marvel, and got to be in Batman vs. Superman. I got to play a cop in that as well.
Is there still a stunt that you want to perform?
I'm a huge geek when it comes to Star Wars. So I want to do anything on a Star Wars show. And I've got some friends that have worked on the new Star Wars shows that are on Disney. And I've told them, I said, if you need anybody my size, that I'll put on a Wookiee costume and jump off a building or whatever you want me to do. I said, so it doesn't matter what the stunt is, I'll come and do it. So just so I can be in a Star Wars.
It's kind of funny. We have a mutual friend, and he told me, he says, make sure you ask him about Star Wars, because his whole office is filled with Star Wars stuff. I got to ask you, why Star Wars?
It's one of those stories that it's like it's a timeless story. It's Greek mythology. It's one of the 6 original stories. You know what I mean? But it's just told in such a way that not only that is obviously for the time period is when we were young. That was making it fun. It was like robots and space and all these things. It was beautiful, and it caught your eye, and it was amazing. And then, like I said, once you become, you get hooked in there, then all of a sudden you start watching the actual story, and you get involved in the story, and it's just something that sticks with you forever. And I've got a lightsaber tattoo on my arm. I've got a stormtrooper on my shoulder. And like you said, my office is filled with all my Star Wars toys that I've collected over the years.
Jay, I can't help but to be sitting here listening to you right now, tell me all these great stories, talking to the listeners, telling us everything. But I have to ask you one thing. As big as you are, what was it like to have to wear makeup for the first time?
I never have a problem with that. The biggest thing for me is sitting still long enough to be able to have it applied to me. That's my problem. I don't mind putting it on. Oh, that's fine. But I can't. I'm just horrible at sitting still. My wife is she's very good at special effects makeup, and I'm the one that she practices on. But it's very hard for her because I don't like to sit still for that long. So I have no problem with the makeup as long as I can keep myself busy and sit still long enough to not get stabbed in the eye.
Jay, I want to make sure that we get this in here. And I know that you absolutely love to give back to the community. You do a lot with the Red Wings Alumni Association. You do a lot with the United Cerebral Palsy here in Detroit. Talk a little bit about why you give back and how you give back.
One of my mottos is that I know that I'm way too lucky. I know that I've hit the jackpot. I've gotten to do so many amazing things, but I acknowledge how lucky I am, and I want to make sure that I balance the universe out because I feel that I'm too lucky. So I always want to make sure that I balance it out to pay the universe back and kind of give back and balance it out to make sure that I'm giving back as much as I'm getting. So I do a lot of stuff with, like you said, the Red Wings Alumni Association, with the Joe Coaster Foundation, the Ted Lindsay Foundation with Autism for Kids. We do a bunch of outings, golf outings and things like that, and fundraisers for them. And I also help to put on a hockey game for, like you said, Michigan United Cerebral Palsy. It's a game that's been going on for, I think, 26, 27 years now. And about 22 years now, because we had our 20th anniversary, and so we're about 23 years now. And but regardless, we do it every year at Michigan, Orchard Lake St. Mary's, and we play against the Red Wing alumni, and we raise money for Michigan United Cerebral Palsy. And every year we've raised close to $40,000 a year to give back to United Cerebral Palsy. And it's an amazing organization that gives back. What they do is they provide things to help disabled people to help them live better, whether it be equipment that they need to help them live better, whatever it may be. So United Cerebral Palsy, I've been working with them for quite a few years, and we do a lot of events for them. But yeah, like I said, I mean, I try to, if there's an event around and they need somebody, if I'm available, I always tell them, please reach out. I try to give back and try to be available for, anything that, any charity around here might need.
I love that. Hey, Jay, what is your website? Because I encourage all of you to go to his website and just watch some of his reels. I mean, they are amazing. To sit here and listen to these stories, but then to go watch you in action. I mean, it's pretty awesome. Tell everybody how they can follow you.
Yeah, they can just go. Yeah, you can just go to www.jadamstunts.com. And also, I'm on all the socials, Instagram, all that stuff at J Adams Stunts as well. So you can always find me on there.
Hey, Jay, before I let you go, I have to ask you this last question. And that is, how do you stay motivated every single day to wake up and keep doing this? What inspires you?
Well, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to get motivated. It's, especially, in these days and age, this day and age, there's always something going on that can mess you up. Me personally, I stay motivated because I have a great family and my wife is great. I have a great 2 sons and a daughter. I have a granddaughter that's going to be 4 in December. And it's so, that's what motivates me now is trying to make a better life for them. So, that's what keeps me going.
Jay Adams, I cannot thank you enough for hanging out with us, inspiring us, and just giving us, a light into your life. And you're amazing. And again, how can everybody find you?
jadamstunts.com or just J Adams Stunts at all the socials.
Hey, everybody, if you missed any part of the Outstanding Life podcast, you can find us at Outstanding Life on all major platforms or wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, I want to wish each and every one of you a safe and an outstanding day. We'll see you next time right here on the Outstanding Life podcast.
Hey, I'm Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy. Let me ask you, are you planning a conference, convention, meeting, assembly, or any live event that needs a guest speaker? Man, I would love to be a part of it. For more information, visit motivationalcowboy.com. And don't forget to check out my Outstanding Life podcast every Saturday morning at 6 a.m. right here on Dirt Road, KYDT 103.1 FM. I'm Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy, telling you, be safe, have fun, and have yourself an outstanding day.
Thanks for listening to the Outstanding Life podcast. Follow Johnny D on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Motivational Cowboy. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the show, advertise, or would like to make a donation, please visit motivationalcowboy.com. And remember to have an outstanding day.